Imagine your entire world destroyed. Every other planet turns you away as a burden. Then one message changes everything. All are welcome. This is the story of Earth's radical welcome to 237 crystal-being refugees fleeing devourer swarms. Their journey from despair to hope begins with a simple invitation that reshapes the galaxy. Crystalline light patterns shimmered across the planet's surface, a fragile beauty that had taken eons to create. The Zephyrians moved through their geometric cities with quiet purpose, their forms reflecting the ambient light in prismatic displays. They communicated through harmonic resonance, their entire society built around the creation and appreciation of sound and light. For generations, their greatest achievements were symphonies played across electromagnetic spectrums and crystalline structures that focused starlight into magnificent displays. Then the sky darkened. It began as a subtle shift in the starfield, a faint distortion at the edge of their detection range. The Zephyrian astronomers initially interpreted it as an atmospheric phenomenon, perhaps a rare alignment of cosmic particles. Their instruments were built for measuring light harmonics and cosmic vibrations, not for tracking incoming threats. By the time they recognized the distortion pattern as an approaching swarm, it was already too late to mount any defense. The devourer swarms descended without warning patterns or communication signals. They moved as a single predatory entity, blackening the sky with their numbers. Their approach created interference patterns that disrupted the Zephyrians' harmonic communications, cutting off their ability to coordinate or understand what was happening. The swarm's vanguard struck the planetary defense grid, what little existed, and dismantled it within minutes. Crystalline towers that had taken millennia to grow turned to dust under the swarm's consumption. The Zephyrians had no military infrastructure, no weapon systems, no concept of organized violence. Their entire defense strategy had been based on remaining unnoticed in the galactic community, on being too artistically focused to pose any threat to others. Now that strategy proved catastrophically insufficient against pure predatory aggression. They gathered what remained as their world fractured beneath them. 237 survivors reached the single evacuation vessel they had maintained for scientific expeditions. The ship called Sanctuary had never been intended for mass evacuation or extended travel. Its systems were designed for peaceful research missions, with limited life support capacity and no defensive capabilities whatsoever. The Zephyrians brought what they could carry: musical instruments, light crystals containing their cultural archives, and the fragile hope that someone in the galaxy would offer shelter. Their escape required navigating through the outer edges of the consuming swarm. Sanctuary's sensors detected the swarm's feeding patterns, how they systematically dismantled everything from orbital platforms to atmospheric composition. The ship slipped through a temporary gap in the swarm's coverage, riding shockwaves from their own planet's destruction. They crossed into open space with their homeworld's final light fading behind them. Historical analysis shows that pacifist cultures rarely survive first contact with aggressively expansionist species. The Zephyrians became another data point in that grim statistic, though they didn't know it yet. Their battered ship carried them toward the nearest inhabited systems, its engines strained well beyond design limits. They prepared their pleas for Sanctuary, crafting messages that emphasized their artistic contributions and peaceful intentions. They had crossed the first threshold into a galaxy that measured value differently than they did. Sanctuary's engines hummed with a persistent vibration that spoke of maintenance, cycles missed and fuel reserves dwindling. The ship drifted through the outer relay zones of yet another system, its course marked by the dimming hope of its crystal passengers. Each day stretched into the next with the same ritual: identify a potential sanctuary world, transmit carefully crafted pleas for refuge, then wait through the silent hours for a response that never came. The Zephyrians approached every major power within their limited reach. First, the Kithrian Alliance, whose automated response systems cited immigration quotas and biocontainment protocols. Then the Veln Collective, where a diplomatic attaché actually engaged in dialogue before explaining their society had no use for non-productive aesthetic specialists. The Meridian Empire didn't even bother with a rejection. Their Border Patrol simply locked targeting systems on Sanctuary until the ship retreated beyond their defensive perimeter. They offered what they had: intricate light symphonies that could calm neural patterns, crystalline structures that enhanced communication frequencies, harmonic resonances that promoted ecological balance. Each civilization dismissed their artistry as trivial compared to material resources or military contributions. The galactic political landscape revealed its true nature through these interactions. Calculated indifference masked as pragmatic policy. Advanced societies with ample resources and territory consistently prioritized their own stability, over offering sanctuary to displaced beings. Studies of interstellar relations consistently show that resource allocation decisions follow predictable patterns. Even civilizations with moral frameworks that emphasize compassion will establish strict prioritization systems during times of relative peace. The Zephyrians became case study subjects without knowing it. Their plight measured against risk assessments and resource expenditure projections rather than ethical considerations. Their physical condition deteriorated as the weeks stretched into months. Crystal forms that normally shimmered with internal light grew dull and brittle. Energy reserves meant for artistic expression were diverted to basic life support. The ship's recycling system struggled to maintain atmospheric composition, leaving the air thin and metallic tasting. They reduced movement to conserve energy, floating in meditation patterns that barely sustained their metabolic processes. After 90 standard days of systematic rejection, the Council made their final decision. Sanctuary would make one last jump to a yellow star system barely noted in their archives. Then they would power down non-essential systems and let fate determine their ending. The coordinates were entered with solemn resignation, a final gesture before accepting their collective fate. Then the communication console lit up with a priority message from the system they had almost skipped. The text was simple and direct, translated through standard galactic protocols. All are welcome. No conditions. No demands for information, no requests for resource contributions. Just 4 words that cut through 3 months of galactic indifference. The communication console glowed with 4 simple words translated through standard protocols. No lists of requirements, no requests for resource contributions, just the clear statement that cut through months of bureaucratic rejection. Earth's response transmission arrived without the standard diplomatic preambles or security verification delays that had characterized every other civilization's communications. The message carried no conditions, no demands for cultural assimilation, and no expectation of reciprocal arrangements. It stood in stark contrast to the carefully worded refusals that had filled Sanctuary's communication logs. Within hours, warning messages began flooding the same channel from neighboring systems. The Kithrian Alliance transmitted detailed risk assessments about unknown biological contaminants. The Veln Collective forwarded historical examples of refugee crises, destabilizing host civilizations. Even neutral systems that had remained silent during the Zephyrians' pleas now felt compelled to advise against what they termed a reckless, humanitarian gesture. Their communications emphasized the potential dangers of integrating a species with unknown metabolic processes and psychological frameworks. Earth's leadership acknowledged these warnings without altering their stance. Their follow-up transmission contained only coordinates for Luna Station and approach vectors, plus basic atmospheric composition data for the Zephyrians' medical teams. The absence of negotiation or compromise in their position represented a fundamentally different approach to interstellar relations. Where other civilizations saw risk management calculations, Earth's response suggested a different priority system entirely. Historical analysis of societal development shows that moments of radical acceptance often precede periods of significant cultural transformation. The willingness to embrace the unknown, to extend trust without guarantees of return. These patterns appear repeatedly in civilizations that experience rapid advancement. Earth's simple message fit this pattern, offering guidance without expectation of immediate benefit or demonstration of worth, Captain. Jake Morrison monitored the incoming transmissions. From his station on Luna, he read Earth's initial response 3 times, checking for hidden clauses or conditional language that might have been lost in translation. His experience with interstellar communications had taught him to look for the subtle limitations buried in seemingly generous offers. This message contained none of the usual safeguards or qualifying statements. He forwarded it to verification teams who confirmed its authenticity and direct connection to Earth's Unified Governance Council. The Zephyrians received the coordinates with a mixture of disbelief and cautious relief. Their navigation systems, which had plotted so many hopeless courses toward closed borders, now calculated an approach to the lunar orbital facility. For the first time since their desperate escape, they activated Sanctuary's long-range scanners to examine their destination, rather than merely assessing defensive capabilities. The ship's energy signatures shifted as systems reserved for final shutdown procedures were repurposed for navigation and communication. Their course adjustment represented more than just a change in coordinates. The trajectory toward Luna Station marked a psychological turning point, a transition from hopeless wandering toward directed purpose. Sanctuary's engines maintained a steadier harmonic frequency as the ship aligned with its new destination. The Zephyrians began preparing their limited resources not for survival, but for arrival. Station Commander Lisa Rodriguez watched the alien vessel approach through the main observation port. The ship's crystalline structure reflected Luna's spotlights in prismatic patterns that shifted with its slow rotation. She noted the uneven engine signatures and patchwork repairs visible along its hull. This was not a warship or trading vessel, it was a survivor. Her command console displayed the incoming data stream from Sanctuary. Life support systems operating at minimal levels, energy signatures consistent with severe resource conservation, structural stress patterns suggesting prolonged operation beyond design limits. She had seen these readings before, though never from an extraterrestrial source. Her earlier postings included refugee resettlement operations during the climate migration periods, where she learned to read the silent language of displacement. Messages from Earth Central Command scrolled across her secondary display. Their concerns focused on containment protocols and risk assessment matrices. Analysts worried about unknown pathogens, potential cultural incompatibility, resource allocation conflicts, and security vulnerabilities. The reports used terms like biological unknown and integration challenges rather than discussing people needing shelter. Rodriguez filtered these to a low-priority folder without responding. She had worked with displaced populations through 3 major resettlement crises. That experience taught her that trauma followed predictable patterns across species lines. The need for secure space, clear communication, and demonstration of goodwill translated universally. Her teams had already prepared quarantine zones that balanced medical necessity with psychological comfort. The medical bays included frequency modulators to accommodate unknown sensory ranges, and the housing units featured adjustable environmental controls. When Earth Command questioned her preparation level, her response was concise. Earth has experience with refugees. The statement carried the weight of centuries of human migration patterns, from climate displacement to political asylum cases. She didn't need to cite statistical success rates. Her record spoke through the stability of previous settlements under her supervision. Psychological research consistently shows that successful integration depends heavily on initial reception conditions. The first hours after arrival establish patterns that can last generations. Rodriguez understood that bureaucratic delays or excessive security demonstrations would reinforce the trauma of rejection they'd already experienced. Her orders bypassed standard multi-agency approval processes that typically slowed initial contact. She directed medical teams to position themselves at Maintenance Airlock 3, the smallest and least intimidating docking point. The teams wore standard environmental suits without tactical additions or visible weaponry. Housing units were configured with broad-spectrum lighting options and harmonic resonators calibrated to Zephyrian communication frequencies. Life support systems already matched the atmospheric mix from Sanctuary's last transmission. Her approach combined practical readiness with psychological awareness. The preparations demonstrated welcome without overwhelming their fragile state. When Sanctuary finally completed its docking sequence, the Zephyrians emerged into an environment designed to ease rather than intimidate. The absence of armed guards or complex procedures communicated more than any welcoming speech could have. This first contact established the operational tone for everything that followed. Rodriguez's decisions created a template that would later be studied as a model for interspecies integration. Her combination of practical experience and empathetic understanding turned a potential crisis into a foundation for trust. Jake Morrison noticed the faint harmonics first. They vibrated through Sanctuary's hull during his routine inspection rounds, a subtle resonance that defied the ship's normal operational frequencies. He tracked the source to the main common area where the Zephyrians had gathered. What he found there wasn't emergency planning or systems monitoring. It was creation. The Zephyrians had arranged their remaining light crystals in intricate patterns across the floor. Their slender forms moved in coordinated rhythms, manipulating the crystals to emit complex harmonic sequences. The patterns shifted like living constellations, producing symphonies that played across multiple sensory ranges. Some frequencies registered as visible light displays, others as auditory vibrations, and several beyond normal human perception. They ceased their activities when he entered, their crystalline forms dimming in what he recognized as embarrassment. Through the translation interface, their spokesperson explained they were engaging in cultural preservation. They feared their artistic practices would be dismissed as frivolous by a species that valued practical survival skills. Their entire civilization had prioritized aesthetic development over technological or military advancement, leaving them vulnerable when practical threats emerged. Anthropological research consistently demonstrates that art functions as a universal bridge between cultures. The Zephyrians' light harmonies operated on this principle, communicating emotional states and complex concepts through structured patterns. Their wind chime constructions used precise crystalline arrangements to generate symphonies across the electromagnetic spectrum, creating art that could be experienced through multiple sensory channels. Human crew members began gathering at the observation windows near the Zephyrians' quarters. They watched the light displays that shimmered through the transparent alloy, their faces reflecting the shifting colors and patterns. Station personnel scheduled breaks to coincide with the artistic sessions, finding the harmonies reduced stress and improved focus. Medical staff reported decreased anxiety levels among crew exposed to the performances. The Zephyrians observed this human response through their own sensors. They detected the physiological changes in their audience, reduced cortisol levels, stabilized heart rates, enhanced neural coordination. For the first time since their world's destruction, they recognized that their cultural practices held value beyond mere aesthetic appreciation. Their artistry could actively contribute to the well-being of their hosts. This realization transformed their approach to integration. They began designing specific harmonic patterns to address common station stresses, long shift cycles, confined environments, equipment fatigue. Their creations became functional art that enhanced life support systems and improved crew morale. The station's environmental controls incorporated Zephyrian harmonic resonators that subtly improved air quality and atmospheric balance. The cultural exchange established a foundation for genuine integration. Humans learned to appreciate the practical applications of Zephyrian artistry, while the refugees discovered their skills could contribute to their new society. This mutual recognition of value created the first true connection between species, building trust through shared creation rather than negotiated settlement terms. The artistry that had been dismissed as useless by other civilizations became their most valuable offering to their new home. They developed the crystal maze maneuver through intense collaborative sessions. The tactic involved creating intricate energy fields that mimicked their artistic light patterns. These fields would confuse enemy sensors by generating false readings and phantom signatures. The approach used energy conservation rather than expenditure, aligning with their pacifist principles. The maneuver required precise coordination between multiple ships emitting specific harmonic frequencies. Each vessel contributed to the overall pattern, like instruments in an orchestra. The resulting energy matrix would appear as visual noise to standard targeting systems, while providing clear navigation paths for allied ships. Testing proved the concept's effectiveness. Centauri sensor simulations failed to maintain target locks through the energy interference. Weapon systems misidentified phantom signatures as primary targets. The confusion created tactical advantages without direct confrontation. The Zephyrians had found their contribution to the defense. Their artistry became their weapon, their cultural practices their strategic advantage. They developed additional techniques for masking energy signatures and creating sensor ghosts. Each solution maintained their ethical boundaries while providing practical defensive value. This breakthrough demonstrated how non-military expertise could transform combat effectiveness. The pacifists had developed defensive capabilities that violated none of their principles. Their approach focused on protection and confusion rather than destruction and aggression. The tactical team integrated their methods into overall defense planning. Zephyrian representatives joined command staff, their harmonic analysis providing real-time predictions of enemy movements. The Alliance had gained an unpredictable advantage, a defensive capability rooted in artistry rather than warfare. Their contribution balanced the more aggressive approaches being developed by other species. The Crystal Maze offered a non-lethal option for dealing with superior forces. It represented the Alliance's commitment to finding alternatives to destruction. The countdown continued, but now with additional confidence. The Zephyrians had proven that their unique perspective held value in the coming conflict. Their artistry would shape the battlefield in ways no military planner could have anticipated. The gastropods examined Centauri warship schematics with a healer's perspective. They saw not weapons and armor, but circulatory systems and nervous networks. Their approach to defense reflected their medical expertise. They sought to disable functions rather than destroy structures. They began cultivating organic systems in their laboratory spaces, growing solutions rather than building them. They developed living weapons that operated on biological principles. These organisms could regenerate damage during combat, adapting to countermeasures in real time. They functioned as extensions of gastropod consciousness, responding to tactical needs through biochemical signaling. Their creations represented a fundamental shift from mechanical to organic warfare. Traditional weapons designers struggled to integrate their approach. Military engineers expected standardized specifications and predictable performance metrics. The gastropods provided living systems that evolved during testing. Their weapons required nutrient solutions instead of ammunition, environmental controls instead of maintenance schedules. The compatibility challenges seemed overwhelming at first. The organic systems could phase through solid matter by manipulating molecular bonds. They bypassed armor plating and defensive shields entirely. Once inside enemy vessels, they targeted specific systems for disablement. They could neutralize weapons, engines, or communications without harming crew members. This precision aligned with Earth's ethical stance against unnecessary casualties. Biotechnological research demonstrates that organic systems often outperform mechanical ones in adaptability. Living organisms self-repair, evolve solutions, and operate with efficiency that machines struggle to match. The gastropods applied this principle to combat scenarios, creating defenses that improved during engagement rather than degrading. Their creations infiltrated simulated Centauri vessels during testing. They disabled power transfer systems by introducing organic compounds that interrupted energy flow. They neutralized weapons by secreting enzymes that degraded firing mechanisms. Each solution focused on system disruption rather than structural damage. The approach transformed combat medicine into combat strategy. Where human medics treated wounds after they occurred, gastropod systems prevented injuries from happening. Their methods reduced collateral damage and preserved life on both sides of conflicts. This reflected their fundamental belief in healing over harming. The Alliance's tactical planning incorporated their capabilities. Gastropod organic systems would work alongside Zephyrian energy fields and human conventional weapons. This layered defense created multiple problems for attackers to solve simultaneously. The biological component added unpredictability to their defensive posture. Their contributions demonstrated how specialized knowledge could transform military approaches. Medical expertise became defensive capability without violating ethical boundaries. The gastropods proved that protection didn't require destruction. It could be achieved through precise intervention. The living weapons required careful deployment protocols. They needed specific environmental conditions to remain viable. Maintenance involved biological monitoring, rather than mechanical repairs. The gastropods trained human technicians in their care and handling, creating hybrid teams that blended species expertise. This collaboration produced defensive systems, unlike anything in galactic military history. The organic weapons could not be countered by standard electronic warfare measures. They evolved solutions to jamming and interference patterns. Their adaptive capabilities made them increasingly effective against repeated attack patterns. The gastropods had turned their healing knowledge into protective strength. Their approach demonstrated that warfare could be conducted with precision and restraint. Medicine and combat merged into a new discipline that valued preservation over annihilation. This alignment with Earth's principles strengthened the Alliance's moral position while enhancing its defensive capabilities. The luminaries interfaced directly with Luna's power distribution network, their energy forms flowing through conduits and relay systems. They merged with the station's infrastructure not as separate entities but as integrated components. Their presence stabilized energy fluctuations that had plagued the aging systems for years. Power levels that once dipped during high-demand periods now held steady, regardless of load requirements. They volunteered to enhance the defensive shield systems protecting the Alliance vessels. Their energy matrices could absorb impacts that would overwhelm conventional shielding. The protection extended beyond mere barrier strength. Their fields actively dissipated incoming energy across multiple frequencies. This distributed the force of attacks rather than attempting to block them entirely. Some human engineers expressed concern about the arrangement. They worried the luminaries were exposing themselves to potential harm. Memories of the energy beings' descriptions of attempted enslavement made the partnership feel uncomfortably similar to those past violations. The fear was that defense requirements might pressure them into risky contributions. The luminaries addressed these concerns through direct communication. They explained they were participating by choice, not coercion. Their energy signatures showed no signs of distress or depletion during testing. They described the experience as collaborative rather than exploitative. AI, mutual exchange of capabilities rather than one-sided. Consumption, their power systems, operated on principles human science had only theorized. They created renewable energy fields that generated more power than they consumed. These fields surrounded defending ships with protective barriers that strengthened under attack. The systems used incoming weapon energy to reinforce their own structural integrity. Energy distribution studies consistently show decentralized systems outperform centralized ones under stress. The luminaries demonstrated this principle in real time. Their networks could route power around damaged sections, maintaining functionality despite combat damage. Failed components isolated themselves automatically while redundant pathways activated. Their capabilities included offensive-defensive measures. They learned to capture incoming weapons fire and channel it back toward its source. The process involved careful energy redirection rather than simple reflection. They could analyze attack patterns and return fire through gaps in enemy shielding. This turned the Centauri's superior firepower into their own vulnerability. Station sensors detected the incoming vessel long before visual confirmation. Its organic signature registered as biological matter with minimal metallic components, moving erratically through approach vectors. The ship trailed viscous fluid that crystallized in vacuum, creating a sparkling wake behind its damaged hull. Its design suggested a living organism modified for space travel, rather than constructed from standard materials. The gastropods emerged through what appeared to be natural membrane airlocks. Their forms shifted between solid and gelatinous states, adapting to the station's atmospheric conditions. They moved with purposeful fluidity, their surfaces reflecting the docking bay lights in rainbow patterns. Translator devices mounted on flexible appendages broadcast their identification. Medical specialists, not combatants. Their communicated purpose was consistent across all transmissions, healers seeking sanctuary from corporate expansion. Their home station had been dismantled for rare biological compounds. Mining corporations valued their world's unique biochemistry more than its inhabitants. The gastropods described how extraction teams arrived with planet-cracking equipment, ignoring established preservation agreements. They prioritized resource acquisition over existing ecosystems, viewing biological diversity as inventory rather than life. The gastropods escaped with only their medical knowledge and whatever specimens they could preserve. They carried 55 individuals in various life stages. Adults maintained the ship's biological systems while juveniles required specialized containment fields. Each gastropod exhibited unique biochemical signatures that demanded customized environmental support. Their medical needs surpassed any previous refugee group Luna Station had accommodated, requiring entirely new life support protocols. Economic analysis of corporate expansion patterns shows consistent prioritization of short-term resource extraction over long-term ecological stability. The gastropods' experience mirrored historical examples where profit motives overrode ethical considerations. Their advanced medical knowledge represented exactly the type of non-renewable resource that typically attracts corporate interest. Except this resource resided in living beings rather than planetary deposits. Their biological expertise revolutionized human medical science. They understood cellular regeneration at levels humans had only theorized. Their techniques could repair genetic damage, reverse aging processes, and eliminate degenerative conditions. They viewed disease as ecosystem imbalance rather than invasion, treating illnesses through biological harmony instead of chemical warfare. Their methods produced permanent cures rather than symptom management. They demonstrated their capabilities by healing conditions that had resisted human treatment for generations. Neurodegenerative diseases responded to their subtle biochemical adjustments. Cellular decay patterns reversed under their care. They shared knowledge freely, integrating their organic methods with human technology to create hybrid medical systems that surpassed either approach alone. Their arrival shifted the station's resource calculations. Instead of draining resources, they enhanced capabilities. Medical bays began operating with unprecedented efficiency, reducing treatment times and improving outcomes. The gastropod's understanding of biological systems extended beyond medicine to agriculture, environmental management, and waste recycling. They turned problems into opportunities through their unique perspective. Earth's leadership observed how refugee populations brought complementary skills rather than Dan Chunda needs. The gastropod's medical knowledge addressed human limitations, just as Zephyrian artistry addressed psychological needs. This pattern suggested that diversity itself created strength through capability exchange. The station's medical facilities became training centers where human doctors learned techniques that would eventually spread across Earth's healthcare systems. The third refugee group registered on Luna's sensors as pure energy signatures with no physical mass. They arrived not in ships but as self-contained fields moving through space, their presence causing instrument panels to flicker with unfamiliar readings. The luminaries manifested as shifting concentrations of light, visible across multiple spectra yet somehow apprehensive in their movements. They pulsed with caution, holding position just outside standard communication range until security protocols could confirm their peaceful intent. Their transmission, when it finally came, was stripped of diplomatic formalities. They identified themselves as energy-based life forms fleeing systematic capture attempts. Multiple civilizations had tried to contain them, to harness their innate power generation capabilities for weapons or energy grids. Their plea was a simple refusal. No, we do not do that. That is slavery and murder. The statement carried the weight of lived experience, translated through systems that struggled with the emotional resonance behind the words. Other spacefaring cultures saw the luminaries as resources rather than beings. Military powers wanted to weaponize their energy projection abilities, channeling their natural emissions into ship-to-ship combat systems. Industrial societies envisioned them as permanent power sources, containing them in energy farms to fuel planetary infrastructure. The luminaries described capture attempts that involved frequency-dampening fields and dimensional anchors, technologies designed to restrict their natural movement and extract their energy against their willed. Ethical analysis of first contact scenarios consistently shows that significant power disparities often lead to exploitation. Civilizations encountering beings with valuable capabilities frequently rationalize containment and control as necessary security measures. The luminaries represented an extreme case, a species whose very existence made them targets for appropriation by more physically oriented civilizations. Their fear reflected this historical pattern of the powerful consuming the vulnerable. Earth's response followed the established pattern of unconditional sanctuary. Station Commander Rodriguez authorized their approach without demanding demonstrations of their capabilities or explanations of their energy output. The only requirements were standard biocontamination protocols, adapted for energy-based life forms. The luminaries received the same housing accommodations as previous refugee groups, secure space with environmental controls set to their preferred conditions, no questions asked about potential utility. Their reaction to this treatment was immediate and transformative. Where other civilizations had tried to force their cooperation, Earth offered partnership. Within days, the luminaries began volunteering to interface with Luna Station's power grid. They stabilized energy fluctuations, enhanced solar collection efficiency, and provided clean backup power during system maintenance. Their contributions were offered freely, not extracted under coercion. This partnership demonstrated Earth's commitment to ethical principles over short-term advantage. The station's power systems became more efficient and reliable without any reduction in the luminaries' autonomy. They moved freely throughout the station, their energy forms integrating seamlessly with existing infrastructure. Their fear of enslavement diminished as they experienced genuine collaboration. The arrangement proved mutually beneficial. Human engineers learned to design systems that harnessed ambient energy more efficiently, reducing waste and improving sustainability. The luminaries gained security and community without sacrificing their freedom. Their voluntary contributions to the station's operations became a model for ethical interspecies cooperation, demonstrating that protection didn't require exploitation. The Hive-Touched arrived in a vessel that showed no external markings or identification. Their ship communicated through minimalist data bursts that contained only essential information: survivor count, resource status, request for sanctuary. They identified themselves as exiles from a collective consciousness that valued absolute conformity. Their crime had been individual thought. Their society operated as a unified mind, processing information through consensus patterns that allowed no deviation. Independent analysis threatened the collective's stability. The exiles had developed unique cognitive processes that enabled parallel processing of multiple scenarios. This capability made them dangerous to a system built on singular thought patterns. They were removed before their differences could influence others. They approached Luna Station with visible apprehension. Their movements were precise yet hesitant, as if expecting constraints to be imposed. They carried the psychological weight of systematic suppression, their communication patterns revealing deep suspicion of any form of organizational control. Their initial interactions focused on establishing boundaries and autonomy protections before discussing practical needs. Psychological studies of suppressed populations show that enforced conformity often produces unique cognitive adaptations. The Hive-Touched developed mental frameworks that could process trillions of micro-decisions simultaneously. They could analyze complex systems from multiple perspectives at once, identifying patterns and solutions that linear thinkers would miss. This capability remained dormant under collective rule, emerging only after their exile. They demonstrated their abilities through station operations. Given access to logistical systems, they optimized resource distribution with unprecedented efficiency. They identified maintenance needs before systems registered alerts. Their planning improved emergency response times by anticipating multiple failure scenarios simultaneously. Their cognitive patterns complemented rather than replaced existing human decision-making. Their strategic insights transformed defense planning. They could simulate fleet engagements across thousands of variables, predicting opponent movements with startling accuracy. Their analyses considered psychological factors, environmental conditions, and technological limitations as integrated elements rather than separate considerations. This holistic approach revealed vulnerabilities in standard tactical models. Military strategists initially struggled with their nonlinear presentation style. The Hive-Touched delivered recommendations as interconnected probability webs rather than sequential steps. Human officers had to learn new interpretation methods to utilize their insights effectively. The learning curve proved worthwhile when their predictions began preventing crises before they developed. Their liberation unlocked capabilities that conformity had suppressed. Free from collective constraints, their individual strengths amplified through collaboration. They developed communication protocols that allowed coordination without compromising autonomy. Their example demonstrated how diversity of thought could enhance rather than threaten group effectiveness. The station's operational efficiency improved across all sectors. Supply chains optimized, energy consumption patterns refined, communication networks streamlined. The Hive-Touched approaches complemented the Zephyrians' harmonic systems and the gastropods' biological solutions. Each species contributed unique problem-solving methodologies that together created robust systems. Their strategic capabilities would later prove crucial when external threats emerged. The same cognitive patterns that made them dangerous to a conformity-based society became invaluable for defense planning. Their ability to anticipate multiple attack vectors and coordinate complex responses provided advantages that homogeneous forces lacked. Their exile became Earth's strategic advantage precisely because they were different. Luna Station's operational systems began transforming as refugee knowledge integrated with human frameworks. The Zephyrians' computing methods used harmonic resonance to process information, replacing binary code with multi-frequency calculations. Data flowed through crystalline matrices that handled complex equations faster than silicon-based systems. Network speeds increased dramatically while energy consumption dropped. Information that once required minutes to process now resolved in seconds, enhancing everything from life support monitoring to communication relays. Then the Galactic Council's warning arrived. Their transmission condemned Earth's integration policies as unnatural collaboration. They threatened economic sanctions and possible isolation from interstellar trade networks. The message framed diversity as a security risk rather than a strength. It reflected the same mindset that had rejected the Zephyrians months earlier, the fear that mixing species and technologies would create unpredictable disruptions. Meanwhile, the gastropod's biological expertise addressed medical limitations that had plagued humans for generations. Their organic solutions repaired cellular damage without invasive procedures. Degenerative conditions that were once considered irreversible showed marked improvement under their care. They developed tailored treatments based on individual genetic profiles, moving beyond one-size-fits-all medicine. Their methods required fewer resources than traditional pharmaceutical approaches, reducing medical waste and production costs. The luminaries integrated with the station's power grid, providing clean energy without environmental cost. They converted solar radiation into usable power with near-perfect efficiency, eliminating the need for fuel consumption or waste management. Energy storage systems that once required massive physical infrastructure now operated through controlled energy fields. The station's carbon footprint dropped to near zero as they phased out combustion-based systems. Economic analysis of technological exchange shows that knowledge sharing creates compound growth. Luna Station demonstrated this principle in real time. The Hive touched optimized resource allocation through their parallel processing capabilities. They identified waste patterns and inefficiencies that linear analysis had missed. Emergency response systems improved as they could anticipate multiple crisis scenarios simultaneously. Resource distribution became more efficient, reducing surpluses and shortages across all sectors. The station's economy strengthened through diversified capabilities rather than standardized production. Different species contributed unique approaches to common problems. Zephyrian harmonic systems improved mental health and productivity. Gastropod biotech reduced medical costs and extended healthy lifespans. Luminary energy solutions eliminated fuel expenses and environmental damage. Hive-touched planning prevented crises before they required expensive solutions. Cooperation generated measurable benefits across all metrics. Security improved through diverse threat assessment capabilities. Resilience increased as multiple systems provided redundant functionalities. Wealth grew through reduced costs and enhanced capabilities. The station became a model of sustainable development through integration rather than isolation. The old order's fear of disruption proved fundamentally misguided. They had anticipated chaos and conflict from interspecies collaboration. Instead, they witnessed innovation and stability emerging from diversity. Luna Station's success challenged the galactic consensus that homogeneity ensured security. The economic transformation demonstrated that inclusion created strength, where exclusion had created vulnerability. The transmission arrived on all diplomatic channels simultaneously, bypassing standard communication protocols. The Centauri Union's message carried the weight of established power, its encryption patterns indicating official military origin. It began with a formal declaration of grievance against Earth's refugee policies, citing undefined security concerns and violations of interstellar norms. The tone shifted quickly from diplomatic complaint to direct threat. They demanded the immediate expulsion of all non-human species from Luna Station and Earth's territory. The ultimatum allowed exactly 30 standard days for compliance, with no provisions for negotiation or extension. Failure to meet this deadline would result in military action described as necessary galactic sanitation. The phrase framed refugee populations as contaminants requiring removal, rather than beings deserving protection. The communication detailed potential consequences with clinical precision. It referenced fleet mobilization patterns and weapon capabilities without specific deployment information. The subtext was clear. This was not a bargaining position, but a final decision from a superior military force. The Centauri Union had calculated that Earth would prioritize self-preservation over principle. Other major powers maintained silence following the transmission. The Kithrian alliance acknowledged receipt without comment. The Veln Collective issued a neutral statement about respecting interstellar sovereignty. The Meridian Empire simply noted they were monitoring the situation. Their collective inaction suggested either tacit approval or cautious observation. None challenged the Centauri framing of refugees as threats requiring removal. Historical analysis of ultimatums shows they often force moral clarity that gradual pressure avoids. The Centauri demand eliminated middle ground and compromise options. Earth could either abandon its principles or accept confrontation with a militarily superior force. The 30-day deadline created immediate pressure for decision-making, without room for extended deliberation. Refugee leaders convened within hours of the transmission. The Zephyrians offered to depart immediately to protect their human hosts. The gastropods suggested returning to space rather than endangering the station. The luminaries and Hive-Touched made similar proposals, each species willing to sacrifice their safety for those who had offered them sanctuary. Their unified response demonstrated the very solidarity the Centauri sought to destroy. Earth's leadership responded through both official channels and private communications. The public transmission rejected the ultimatum in clear terms, affirming the right of all species to seek protection. Private messages to refugee leaders guaranteed continued support regardless of consequences. The position was consistent across all communications. No being would be expelled under threat. This decision transformed the situation from philosophical commitment to practical confrontation. The rejection meant preparing for military engagement against a superior force. It meant allocating resources to defense that could have been used for development. It meant risking Earth's standing in the galactic community for a principle others considered naive. The choice represented a defining moment in human extraterrestrial relations. Where other civilizations had prioritized security through exclusion, Earth chose strength through inclusion. The decision created a clear division between those who viewed diversity as weakness and those who recognized it as potential. This philosophical divide would eventually determine which civilizations thrived and which stagnated. Earth's commitment to solidarity over capitulation established a new model for interstellar relations. It demonstrated that principles could outweigh practical calculations when confronting aggression. The refusal to abandon refugee populations showed other species that human promises held value even under threat. This consistency built trust where intimidation sought to create fear. Dr. Sophie Chen stood before the assembled species representatives in Luna Station's main command center. The room hummed with active displays showing the Centauri fleet's position and estimated arrival vectors. 30 days glowed in red numerals above the tactical projection. The countdown had already begun. Each species occupied designated zones around the circular console. Zephyrian crystals reflected the strategic displays in fractured light patterns. Gastropod forms shifted restlessly in their containment fields. Luminaries pulsed with restrained energy near power conduits. Hive-Touched representatives maintained precise positions, their movements synchronized yet independent. Humans filled the remaining stations, their faces showing the weight of impending conflict. The tension centered on one unspoken question. Could beings who had never coordinated militarily defend a principle that others considered naive? Their alliance was built on inclusion and mutual support, not combat efficiency. They faced a force trained for unified warfare against a coalition that had never practiced coordinated defense. Military analysis consistently demonstrates that diverse forces develop unique advantages. When properly integrated, homogeneous armies rely on standardized tactics and predictable responses. Mixed forces bring complementary capabilities that create tactical surprises. The challenge lies in coordinating those differences under pressure. Chen initiated the planning session with brutal honesty. She displayed the Centauri order of battle, ship classifications, weapon ranges, standard engagement patterns. The disparity in firepower was undeniable. Their own assets consisted of modified civilian vessels, station defensive systems, and whatever unconventional capabilities the refugee species could contribute. The Zephyrians studied the tactical displays with artistic perception. They saw harmonic patterns in fleet formations that military analysts missed. Their understanding of light and energy revealed potential vulnerabilities in standard warship design. They began sketching defensive patterns that used distortion and reflection rather than direct confrontation. Gastropod representatives approached defense as a biological challenge. They analyzed Centauri life support systems and crew physiological requirements. Their solutions focused on disabling rather than destroying, creating organic countermeasures that would neutralize threats without casualties. They viewed combat as a temporary imbalance requiring correction. Luminaries examined energy distribution patterns across the projected battlefield. They identified power fluctuations and shield harmonics that could be manipulated. Their capabilities allowed them to interact with enemy systems at fundamental energy levels. They proposed defensive screens that would absorb and redirect attacks rather than block them. Hive-touched minds began processing the variables. They calculated probability matrices for thousands of engagement scenarios simultaneously. Their cognitive patterns identified optimal response sequences that leveraged each species' strengths. They created coordination protocols that allowed diverse forces to operate as a cohesive whole. The planning session continued for 18 hours without breaks. Species that had initially communicated through translators developed streamlined interaction methods. Technical teams adapted control systems to accommodate different physiological requirements. Tactical displays shifted from showing separate capabilities to integrated solutions. The goal evolved beyond mere survival. They would demonstrate that cooperation could defeat superiority. Their defense would serve as proof that diversity created strength, where conformity created limitation. Every tactical decision reflected this broader purpose. The preparation phase launched with coordinated urgency. Engineering teams modified systems based on the new strategic concepts. Training simulations incorporated mixed-species crews. Supply chains redirected resources to support the unconventional defense plans. Chen monitored the progress with measured optimism. The species were learning to fight together the same way they had learned to live together, through respect for differences and focus on common goals. The 30-day deadline now represented an opportunity rather than a threat. The command center became the operational heart of their collective defense. Displays showed real-time updates from across the station and fleet. Communication channels remained open between all species at all command levels. The preparation continued with relentless focus. The Zephyrians gathered in their designated observation chamber, their crystalline forms arranged in what appeared to be artistic patterns. To human observers, it looked like another cultural exercise, delicate light harmonies playing across their surfaces as they manipulated energy fields. But their movements held tactical purpose now. They studied Centauri fleet formations not as military threats but as harmonic compositions. Their unique perception revealed patterns invisible to standard analysis. Where tactical officers saw ship positions and weapon placements, the Zephyrians detected energy resonances and interference patterns. They could predict fleet movements by analyzing the harmonic vibrations between vessels, reading the subtle energy exchanges that preceded course changes. This understanding came from millennia of studying light and sound interactions, not combat experience. Military planners initially dismissed their approach. The strategic team had requested damage assessments and weapon specifications. The Zephyrians provided harmonic frequency charts and resonance maps. Command staff struggled to translate artistic terminology into actionable intelligence. The disconnect threatened to waste valuable preparation time as the Centauri deadline approached. Then the Zephyrians demonstrated their predictive capabilities. They accurately forecasted 3 separate Centauri patrol movements based on energy pattern analysis alone. Their predictions matched actual fleet deployments with startling accuracy. The tactical value became impossible to ignore once verified against intelligence data. Their navigation skills proved equally transformative. Zephyrian jump calculations incorporated harmonic resonance factors that human navigators overlooked. They could coordinate multiple jumps with precision that defied standard physics models. Their approach treated space itself as a medium with detectable vibrations and patterns. Scientific research into pattern recognition shows that expertise transcends traditional disciplinary boundaries. The Zephyrians applied artistic perception to military problems with remarkable results. Their methods complemented rather than replaced conventional analysis, providing additional layers of understanding. The former adversary became their most effective diplomat to other military forces. His first-hand accounts of both defeat and acceptance carried credibility that alliance representatives lacked. His conversion proved that the model could appeal even to those trained in opposing ideologies. This unexpected outcome demonstrated that principles, when consistently applied, could achieve what weapons alone could not. 5 years after the Centauri surrender, Luna Station hummed with the coordinated activity of 2 million beings from 47 species. The station had expanded through modular additions that accommodated different environmental needs and physical requirements. Observation decks now showed a tapestry of life forms moving through customized corridors. The original human design had been adapted and enhanced by countless contributions from resident species. Mars turned green under gastropod biotechnology. Their understanding of planetary ecology transformed the red planet's soil composition and atmospheric balance. They introduced carefully engineered organisms that stabilized the terrain and generated breathable air. Their methods worked with the planet's natural systems rather than overwhelming them. The transformation occurred faster than any terraforming project in recorded history. Some human colonists initially feared the rapid changes. They worried that integrating multiple species would create conflict rather than cooperation. Their concerns focused on cultural clashes and resource competition. These fears reflected centuries of human experience with diversity challenges. The reality proved different from their expectations. The asteroid belt hosted cooperative mining, operations that leveraged multiple species capabilities. Voidwalkers located mineral deposits through solid rock. Xiperians used harmonic resonance to fracture asteroids along natural fault lines. Luminaries provided clean energy for processing facilities. Each species contributed methods that reduced environmental impact and improved efficiency. New life forms integrated into the ecosystem without displacing existing species. Gastropod-designed organisms filled ecological niches that supported rather than competed with native life. Their approach emphasized balance and mutual support across biological systems. The resulting ecosystems demonstrated unprecedented resilience and productivity. Sociological research into diverse communities consistently shows accelerated innovation rates. Luna Station exemplified this principle through countless daily improvements. Communication systems evolved through Xiperian harmonic principles. Medical advancements incorporated gastropod biological knowledge. Energy distribution utilized luminary field dynamics. Each innovation built on multiple perspectives. The Interspecies Communication Institute developed universal translation protocols that worked across physiological differences. The system accounted for sensory variations, cognitive patterns, and cultural contexts. It allowed true understanding rather than mere word substitution. This breakthrough eliminated the misunderstandings that often hampered early interactions. Europa's Underwater City project demonstrated cross-species architectural collaboration. Voidwalkers designed pressure-resistant structures that phased with ice sheet movements. Xiperians created lighting systems that supported multiple visual ranges. Humans provided material science expertise. The resulting habitat accommodated species from aquatic gastropods to energy-based luminaries. Difference became measurable strength rather than theoretical liability. The Alliance's diverse capabilities created solutions that homogeneous civilizations couldn't imagine. Problems that would have stalled single-species projects found rapid resolutions through combined approaches. This practical advantage reinforced the philosophical commitment to inclusion. A civilization built on inclusion proved more resilient than any empire constructed through domination. It adapted to challenges through flexible responses rather than rigid doctrines. It drew strength from its diversity rather than suffering from it. The model that began with welcoming refugees now defined a new approach to interstellar civilization. The station's success influenced other human settlements across the system. Mars colonies adopted integrated planning models. Asteroid mining operations implemented cooperative management structures. Even Earth's governance incorporated lessons from the interspecies experiment. The approach spread through demonstrated effectiveness rather than enforced compliance. Luna Station became the operational center for this new civilization. Its corridors reflected the species that inhabited them, its systems designed for universal access. The original refugee reception area remained preserved as a historical site. It served as a constant reminder of the principles that built everything that followed. The transformation exceeded all predictions. What began as humanitarian gesture became evolutionary advantage. The willingness to embrace difference created capabilities that dominance-based systems couldn't match. This demonstrated truth reshaped humanity's place in the galaxy and redefined what civilization could achieve. Earth's success proved cooperation stronger than conquest. Where empires fell to internal strife or external threat, the alliance grew through shared capability. Each species contributed unique strengths that reinforced the whole. Diversity became their strategic advantage, not a weakness to be controlled or suppressed. The bridges they built outlasted every wall raised against them. Those who had feared difference now sought inclusion. Former adversaries joined the network, adding their own distinct capabilities. The model spread not through force, but through demonstrated resilience. The doors stayed open. They became permanent pathways to a stronger civilization, one built on inclusion rather than exclusion. The tactical advantage was immediately apparent during simulation exercises. Centauri vessels faced their own weapons combined with Alliance countermeasures. Attack patterns that should have overwhelmed defenses instead reinforced them. The Luminaries' systems created a defensive feedback loop that punished aggression. This partnership transformed their historical trauma into strategic strength. Their fear of becoming power sources for others faded as they controlled their own contributions. They set limits and conditions for their participation without resistance from human commanders. Their autonomy remained intact throughout the collaboration. The ethical approach yielded measurable benefits. Shield efficiency increased by factors previously considered impossible. Energy consumption dropped to minimal levels despite enhanced protection. System reliability improved as the Luminaries monitored and maintained the networks continuously. Their integration demonstrated that voluntary cooperation produced better results than forced extraction. The Alliance gained defensive capabilities no other civilization could replicate. The Luminaries maintained their freedom while contributing their unique strengths. This balance between autonomy and collaboration became a model for other integrated systems. The energy beings who had fled potential slavery now powered the Alliance's defense by choice. Their partnership proved that ethical treatment created loyal allies where exploitation created resistance. The strategic advantages came not from controlling their power, but from respecting their autonomy. The Hive-touched network activated across the Alliance vessels, their minds linking through modified communication arrays. They established a distributed consciousness that processed tactical data in parallel streams. Each member analyzed different aspects of the battlefield simultaneously, their cognitive patterns complementing, rather than duplicating efforts. The system handled information loads that would have overwhelmed any single species' command structure. They could process trillions of data points across multiple sensory spectra. Ship positions, energy readings, communication patterns, and environmental factors all flowed through their collective analysis. Their cognitive architecture allowed them to identify correlations that linear processing would miss. This capability stemmed from their exile. Their original society had suppressed such independent thought as dangerous to collective unity. Some Alliance members expressed concern about the arrangement. The Zepyrians feared loss of individual agency, remembering how harmonic consensus could override personal expression. Humans worried about ceding tactical decisions to non-human consciousness. The gastropods monitored biochemical stress indicators across all species, watching for signs of psychological discomfort. These concerns reflected legitimate fears about collective systems overriding individual will. The Hive Touch demonstrated their approach through controlled exercises. They provided tactical recommendations without assuming command authority. Their analyses appeared as optional data streams on command consoles, available for consideration rather than implementation. Officers could accept, modify, or ignore their suggestions based on situational awareness. This preserved human command structure while enhancing decision-making capabilities. Their coordination transformed fleet movements. Ships adjusted courses in perfect synchrony without communication delays. Attack patterns developed seamless coordination between different vessel types. Defensive formations shifted with organic fluidity, anticipating threats before they fully materialized. The fleet began operating as a single entity, with multiple specialized components. Cognitive research into distributed decision-making shows significant advantages over centralized control. Systems that process information through parallel channels achieve faster response times and better error correction. The Hive Touch network exemplified these benefits, providing real-time analysis across all combat dimensions. They anticipated Centauri maneuvers through pattern recognition at massive scale. Their analysis of historical engagement data revealed subtle preparation indicators, energy buildups before weapon discharges, minor course adjustments preceding major movements, communication patterns indicating command decisions. All these micro-indicators combined to forecast enemy actions. The early warnings provided crucial advantages during simulated engagements. Gunnery teams received targeting solutions before enemy ships entered firing positions. Navigation plots adjusted to avoid ambush patterns before they developed. Engineering staff preemptively reinforced systems likely to face attack vectors. These few seconds of warning often determined engagement outcomes. Their exile-born skills became essential defensive assets. The same cognitive abilities that made them dangerous to a conformity-based society now protected a diversity-based alliance. Their independent thinking capabilities, developed under suppression, now served collective survival. The network maintained its integrity throughout testing. Individual hive-touched members continued to express unique perspectives within the collective framework. Their system enhanced rather than replaced the command structure, providing additional insight without overriding human authority. This balance between collective processing and individual autonomy proved stable under pressure. Their contribution demonstrated how suppressed capabilities can become strengths when liberated. The skills that endangered them in their home society now protected their new community. This transformation from liability to asset exemplified the Alliance's core principle. That difference could create strength where conformity created vulnerability. The preparation phase benefited significantly from their coordination. Training exercises achieved higher efficiency levels. Resource allocation optimized across all vessels. Maintenance schedules coordinated to maximize readiness. The network became the operational backbone of the defense preparation. The Zephyrian navigators activated their harmonic field generators as the Centauri Vanguard entered engagement range. Their crystalline control interfaces glowed with intricate light patterns that mirrored the energy field spreading through local space. The crystal maze began as subtle distortions at the edge of sensor range, then rapidly expanded into a complex web of interference patterns. What started as defensive measures soon transformed the battlefield itself. The maneuver created shifting layers of light and energy that defied conventional tracking. Centauri targeting systems registered multiple false contacts where no ships existed. Energy readings fluctuated across spectrums that shouldn't contain vessel signatures. The interference patterns mimicked engine emissions, shield harmonics, and weapons charging sequences with perfect accuracy. Standard sensor filters couldn't distinguish reality from carefully crafted illusion. Weapons fire passed through phantom images without resistance. Energy blasts that should have destroyed Alliance vessels dissipated harmlessly through empty space. Kinetic projectiles targeted sensor ghosts that vanished before impact. The Centauri offensive wasted immense firepower on non-existent targets, while actual Alliance ships moved undetected through the distortion fields. Each missed attack represented resources expended without return. Space itself became a defensive weapon through the Zephyrians' manipulation. They used natural energy gradients and cosmic background radiation as components in their defense. The battlefield transformed from empty void to active participant in the engagement. This approach turned the Centauri's familiarity with space combat against them. They faced an environment that actively resisted their efforts. Military analysis consistently shows that unpredictability defeats technological superiority. Standardized forces develop standardized responses to anticipated threats. The crystal maze created conditions that fell outside Centauri tactical training. Their command structure relied on predictable cause and effect relationships that no longer applied in the distorted space. Alliance ships appeared where navigation charts said they couldn't be. They executed maneuvers that defied standard physics models. Vessels targeted by weapon systems would vanish from sensors only to reappear firing from unexpected angles. This tactical unpredictability undermined the Centauri's confidence in their own systems and strategies. Centauri command channels filled with conflicting reports and impossible sensor readings. Officers argued about which contacts represented real threats. Tracking systems provided contradictory data that changed faster than analysts could process. The disciplined command structure began fragmenting under the strain of unreconcilable information. Decisions delayed as commanders struggled to understand what they faced. The Zephyrians' artistic perception had achieved what weapons development could not. Their understanding of light and harmony created defenses that technological solutions couldn't breach. They proved that combat effectiveness could emerge from cultural practices rather than military tradition. Their approach valued misdirection and confusion over direct confrontation. This revolutionary defense demonstrated that pacifist principles could be maintained while ensuring survival. The Zephyrians protected their allies without violating their ethical boundaries. They turned their greatest vulnerability, their lack of combat experience, into their strongest advantage. Their unique perspective revealed solutions that military specialists had overlooked. The Crystal Maze established a new paradigm for space combat. It proved that diversity of thought could outperform uniformity of training. Where other civilizations had dismissed Zephyrian capabilities as non-essential, the Alliance had integrated them into their core defense strategy. This integration now yielded unexpected advantages that might determine the engagement's outcome. The Voidwalkers moved through Centauri warship hulls like energy passing through space. Their unique physical composition allowed them to phase through solid matter without breaching structural integrity. They entered engine rooms, bridge sections, and weapons control centers without triggering security systems or pressure alerts. Their infiltration methods left no traces, no hull breaches, no forced entries, no detectable energy signatures. Alliance commanders debated the ethical implications during planning sessions. Some argued that bypassing standard entry protocols violated established rules of engagement. They expressed concern about normalizing tactics that ignored vessel sovereignty principles. These commanders preferred conventional boarding procedures with clear declaration of intent and traditional capture protocols. The Voidwalkers demonstrated their approach through controlled exercises. They disabled simulated systems without causing permanent damage or endangering crew members. Their methods focused on temporary system interruption rather than destruction. They could neutralize weapons, engines, and communications through precise interference with control mechanisms. No components required replacement afterward, only simple reactivation procedures. This approach established a new standard for space combat effectiveness. Protection of life and property became prioritized over destructive capability. The Alliance proved that mission objectives could be achieved without casualties or irreversible damage. This represented a fundamental shift from traditional warfare models that measured success by destruction levels. Ethical analysis of conflict resolution shows that non-lethal tactics often yield better long-term outcomes. Systems that remain intact can be repurposed rather than replaced. Crews that survive unharmed can be integrated or repatriated. The psychological impact of merciful treatment often converts opponents into allies more effectively than overwhelming force. Centauri crews experienced this firsthand during operations. They awoke from normal sleep cycles to find their vessels completely disabled. Weapon systems showed offline status across all consoles. Engine readouts indicated safe shutdown procedures. Communications arrays registered no damage but refused transmission attempts. The crews remained unharmed, with life support and amenities functioning normally. The psychological effect proved as significant as the tactical advantage. Centauri personnel expected annihilation or capture under harsh conditions. Instead, they found themselves inconvenienced but unharmed. This treatment undermined their commanders' descriptions of the Alliance as barbaric threats. It created cognitive dissonance between propaganda and lived experience. Mercy became a strategic asset rather than a weakness. The Voidwalkers' methods preserved resources on both sides while achieving military objectives. Captured vessels required minimal repair before returning to service. Surviving crews could be questioned or repatriated without trauma-induced resistance. The approach minimized post-war resentment and facilitated faster reconciliation. Combat effectiveness no longer depended on destructive capacity. The Alliance demonstrated that precision and restraint could accomplish more than overwhelming force. This realization forced re-evaluation of standard military doctrines across multiple civilizations. The Voidwalkers proved that the most effective warriors might be those who avoided causing harm whenever possible. Their techniques were studied and adopted by other species within the Alliance. The gastropods developed biological countermeasures that temporarily disabled systems. The luminaries created energy patterns that safely interrupted power flows. Even human security teams began emphasizing disabling techniques over lethal measures. This philosophical shift permeated all aspects of defense planning. The Voidwalkers' contribution transformed military ethics in practical terms. They showed that principles could be maintained without sacrificing effectiveness. Their approach aligned perfectly with Earth's original decision to offer sanctuary, the belief that strength included the capacity for mercy. This consistency between values and actions strengthened the Alliance's moral position throughout the conflict. Admiral Korak watched his flagship's tactical display with growing disbelief. His fleet moved through patterns that should have guaranteed victory, standard engagement formations perfected through centuries of interstellar warfare. Yet his weapons found no targets. His sensors showed conflicting data. His command crew reported impossible readings across all systems. The Centauri force, designed to crush resistance through overwhelming force, was being systematically dismantled by tactics that defied all military doctrine. He had expected to break Earth's defense within hours. Their technology was inferior, their vessels less numerous, their combat experience minimal according to all intelligence reports. Instead, his fleet faced something entirely unexpected. Energy fields distorted space in ways his science officers couldn't explain. Phantom signatures confused targeting systems. Systems failed without apparent cause. Ships reported being disabled without suffering damage. The patterns made no sense within his understanding of warfare. His realization came during the third hour of engagement. He wasn't fighting humans. He was confronting a new form of civilization entirely. The tactics reflected multiple modes of thinking working in concert. Artistic perception shaped the battlefield. Medical expertise disabled systems. Energy manipulation defended vessels. Collective cognition coordinated responses. This wasn't standard military opposition. It was something fundamentally different. His surrender transmission contained no conditions or negotiations. The message was simple and direct. We were wrong. The statement acknowledged more than tactical defeat. It recognized the failure of his entire philosophical framework. He had approached the conflict assuming superiority through homogeneity. The Alliance demonstrated strength through diversity. Psychological analysis of conflict resolution shows that mercy often converts opponents more effectively than destruction. The Alliance's non-lethal approach made this possible. His crews remained unharmed. His vessels suffered minimal damage. This treatment allowed him to surrender without losing honor, or facing court-martial for unnecessary losses. His tour of Luna Station revealed the reality behind the tactics. He saw species working together without enforced hierarchy. Superians created harmonic patterns in engineering sections. Gastropods tended biological systems. Luminaries integrated with power grids. Hive touched coordinated operations. Humans facilitated rather than dominated. The station functioned as an ecosystem rather than a command structure. He understood the fundamental difference. His civilization sought strength through control and conformity. The Alliance achieved strength through collaboration and diversity. One system suppressed differences to maintain order. The other integrated differences to create new capabilities. His defeat came not from inferior technology but from inferior social organization. His decision to join the Alliance was logical rather than emotional. He recognized that their model offered better long-term survival prospects. His combat experience and knowledge of Centauri tactics became valuable assets. His conversion from opponent to advocate demonstrated the Alliance's persuasive power. His defection provided the strongest possible validation of their approach. A career military officer from a tradition-focused civilization had chosen their system after experiencing its effectiveness. This practical demonstration carried more weight than any theoretical argument. His presence at planning sessions added strategic depth, while signaling to other Centauri commanders that alternatives existed.